Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. All right, everybody, welcome back. And I am here with my friend Laura Fluke. Everybody, Laura Fluke from the Quiet Room. Hey, Laura, how are you doing? And happy
Good
early
morning.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, same to you as well. Are you ready yet?
I believe I'm getting there. My mom just got back in town, so it's
Awesome.
these days it's very small, but
Yeah.
looking forward to it. How about you? What do you got going on?
I will be actually hosting over here. So my daughter and her family, and then my sister and her family will be over. So yeah. So, we're kind of doing a little bit of the typical traditional and adding in a couple of Croatian dishes and
That's what I
stuff
was
like
going to
that.
ask. I mean, from the Croatian background, what's different about Thanksgiving, or is it the same? That
Well, obviously Croatia doesn't celebrate US's Thanksgiving, but I mean, I guess it depends on each family. But this year will be the first year. My family doesn't know it yet, but this will be the first year that I'll make stuffed cabbage rolls for,
oh,
like, so I'll have turkey and all of that stuff, but as a secondary protein, I'm gonna make stuffed cabbage. So I'm a little excited about that. It's been a little while since our family's had them, so
okay.
yeah. So
In Croatia, do they have anything similar to Thanksgiving?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, the reality is that I'm an American Croatian,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But
yeah,
my heart is just, I certainly follow all of our traditions and foods and, some of the culture and stuff like that. But some of the more, the bigger, somebody who's from there, I was born here, but I have friends that would probably know more of the traditions and stuff like that are, country based for them. So
I see. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, that's neat. Well, before we get started, I have a something I wanted to ask you about. It's about one of the practices that you do
Oh yeah, please.
in your work. But beforehand, can you just give us a little, in case people are just tuning in and don't know too much about you and about how you're helping people and
Right.
practice? If it just just a real quick kind of wrap around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've been doing craniosacral therapy for about 6 or 7 years or so. And it's a beautiful it's a very light touch modality to help people kind of move through pain and stress and maybe a little bit of overwhelm, to correct things physically. Sometimes people will come in. I actually had a client come in last week, and actually this is a cool story to share. Actually, she came in. She's doing life like we all do, of course, and was just noticing that she just felt a little more stressed than she wanted to be. you know Came in, she had been moving through a sinus infection or something along those lines. And I says, what are we working on today? Because I'm just so tired of all of this congestion in here. So sure enough, we worked on all of that, and, like on some parts of her body, like her low back was bothering her, and then her shoulder was a little sore. So we worked on that. So then I said, how's your sinuses? How's your face feeling? And she goes, still kind of clogged. So wearing, gloves, I can go inside of the mouth and work on the tissues around the cheeks. I can, pull the cheekbones up and kind of open those sinuses. And then I can go to the roof of the mouth and kind of pull the roof of the mouth, soften that a little bit. And you could just feel the tissues begin just releasing. They become more smooth, more gentle. They soften. They feel like they're melting, that kind of thing. So sure enough, I go and I work on one side, and I check in with her and I says, how's everything feeling? She goes, feels like this side's all the way big and this side's still compressed. so,
Oh,
so sure enough, I go in and I work on now the left side and everything like that. She looked at me and she goes, man, I didn't realize that just talking about everyday life, she was speaking about, some notable, but some mundane everyday life things. And she says, I feel like I'm 50 pounds lighter because I've talked about this. I've processed through some of this. I had this connection. There was support. And then physically on a mechanical level, because we were able to go and interact with her face and, just change, the way that it was interacting with other parts of her face, she felt relief. Actually, I don't know if she's still dealing with the sinus, drainage type thing, but I know that she had said very distinctly, I just feel more clear, I can think straighter, and it kind of comes back to what we were saying, in other conversations. This work doesn't change your scenario. It just changes the way that way a person can interact with it. Do you know what I mean? And maybe they're not as stressed. They get some of the fog or the heaviness out of their head, or, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where craniosacral becomes a beautiful tool, or the work that, I do, whether it's, Reiki, which is, Reiki means, life force, universal life force, basically. So, and then I've been finding, I have to be honest with you, I think that I'm finding that a life force that also permeates our body is our awareness. And I think when we connect that awareness with our breath, then we really kind of see where we're at. You know what I mean? And I know that's kind of a deep kind of thought this early in the morning, but we were having a conversation the other day, a friend and I, and she had described somebody as a narcissist. And I'm like, that may apply, based on our common knowledge of what narcissists are, and I mean, I don't like that word, because it just feels like it's a word that somebody would use in psychology that in some ways has a pathology to it. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a issue, there's a dis-ease with a person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And
a negative thing.
so,
Yeah.
right, is a negative thing. And I mean, whether it applies or not is not the question, but I think so many of us get caught in using that word that I think when I've noticed the difference between someone we may say, well, he's a narcissist, he doesn't think of anybody, versus somebody who maybe, we may use the word enlightened or awake or aware. And I think that they're in a higher state of consciousness. And I think that there's some truth to that. When I'm aware of how my actions are affecting you, then I become much more compassionate, become much more empathic, or, and empathetic to what's going on in your life, and kind of going, okay, if I understand and know what's going on in your life, then I have a greater potential to go and have our relationship be smooth, as opposed to assuming that because you're so involved with your life that, you are a narcissist. I don't like that. You know what I mean? It's kind of an odd off topic kind of thing, but yeah, it's just something that I think if we become aware of ourselves, and I think that this is where this work, really comes in handy, is when we're less stressed and we're not having to go and stare at, all of the chaos that may be in front of our face or in our scenario. If we can get calmed down and regulated, within our nervous system, within our body, within our minds, then we open up a greater potential for a smoother relationship, or interaction with somebody. And we have a less potential to look at that person and say, oh, you're a narcissist because you're not thinking of anybody. Well, did you stop and see what's going on in their life too?
Right.
So sorry, it was a little editorial.
It's okay. It's all right. So, so,
But
okay. So my question was, in your work,
mhm.
some of your sessions may include work throughout the shadow light spectrum. Can you
Yes.
can you talk to me about what that is?
Yes. I would say that the shadow is something, or the darkness that we have in our lives. This is something that we fear. We may, some people may, oh, that's of, say the devil or Satan or whatever. So we see darkness as being something bad or evil. And granted, of course, it surely can be. But I think that it's, the shadow parts of us are also those things that we put off in the corner that we don't want to necessarily see. And, then now something comes up in life, and somehow there's some light cast upon that shadow part, that thing that you were trying to put off to the side and not deal with, maybe not examine, maybe not sit with. And then it feels like it's a dark thing because there's no light on it. Now, if we go and we bring light into it and kind of go, okay, let's let's shed some light on what we're seeing, this scenario, that may be causing a person to react differently than they may wish. They may feel upset. They may be, angry or mad, or, whatever the response is. If it's a painful something that we have in that shadow in the dark where we don't want to deal with, a lot of times we'll act out in pain because, you just hit something that was bothering me. And I've been trying to hide that for a long time. Now this scenario comes up and now I'm somewhat forced to look at it because there's a crack of light on it, right? The something in this is, you walk away from that scenario, you walk away from that interaction with the person, and where we're wise to do things and where that awareness and that you become self-conscious, like not to the point, oh, don't look at me, but self-conscious of going, how is this affecting me?
Yeah.
And where you're going with, how is this shadow part that I've been hiding? How is it affecting me currently? And is it affecting the way I'm doing life? And do I want to do it that way now from this point forward? That is an earmark of somebody who's willing to kind of do their work and kind of go, I'm kind of tired of bumping up against this shadow place, this dark space, this whatever it is that I haven't really looked at before. And if that person is either they feel like they're at a point in their own mindset that they can kind of sit with it and work with it themselves, great. If they're not, and this thing keeps coming up and they're triggered and they just don't know what to do with that scenario, this is maybe where a session comes in with me, kind of going, okay, let's settle down into this and kind of go, okay, is your current scenario that may be bumping against that shadow piece, is your current scenario bothering you, or are you in pain or uncomfortable because of what was bumped up against? So then we sit with that and we say, oh, wow, I didn't really think about that. Well, this is just the way I've always done it. I've always responded this way. And, so then the next question may be, I mean, not to sound all Dr. Phil, but is that working for you? You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
So we have to sit back and with support and, somebody looking at the scenario with somebody, it's so much easier to kind of not feel so overwhelmed by, well, I'm talking about the scenario that once poked me before, and now I have new understanding about it, and now it's not so painful. So say, for example, so if I get tired, when I get tired just mentally or emotionally or even spiritually, I kind of feel like, nobody knows I'm tired. Nobody knows I'm here. Or start feeling not sorry for myself, but, doesn't anybody know that I'm struggling or anything like that? And so then we start having expectations, at least I do. Then I'm thinking, well, how come my daughter's not calling? And how come my son's not calling? And how come, I haven't talked to this person? And so this shadow part of, I'm feeling tired and I'm feeling alone is kind of rising up, and it's getting worse and it's getting worse. And now I'm thinking, well, you know what? You guys are idiots for not calling and asking how I am. Well, they don't even know what's going on. So now, as an example, I go and I call a friend and I'll say, hey, this is what's going on. I just feel bad that, I didn't hear from so-and-so, something like that. And then my friend, who I work with upon occasion should go, okay, well, what are you looking at? Why are you feeling that way? Well, because. And then when she asks certain questions, I'm like, okay, you know what? It really has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with the fact that today I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, or I'm, fill in the blank, or
Right.
I'm in pain physically, or, I'm just tired of dealing with this, thing over and over again, and I want to change it. So sometimes when we get to that place where we don't want to work with it, we put it in the shadows and just work with it another time. And then, like I said, at some point, you can only go around the mountain so many times before you finally sit there going, oh my God, I gotta change this.
Yeah.
What do I do? So that's where, dialoguing, where, support in this manner, these types of, this this internal support really helps, because then you're able to process Why am I thinking that way? Why am I behaving that way? And it's not like it's overt. Like I didn't go in, like my friend that I had mentioned about the sinuses,
Yeah,
earlier
yeah.
today. It's not like I went and asked her a myriad of questions, and it's not like there's a checklist. It was like, well, what are you noticing there? And she said, oh, okay, maybe I'm noticing this. I was, well, what do you think about that? Or what does your body think about that? More importantly,
Hmm.
does that feel like it's softening? Or does it feel like it's getting tighter or constricting? Those types of signals in our body give us an idea. Are we moving through effectively? Because if we're softening and we're loosening, like if the tissues feel softer, you feel that sense of wanting to sigh or yawn, the body starts relaxing. And if we're asking the body, well, wherever this is at, or the mindset, where are you at with this? And the body sinks in and there's an answer provided, you'll notice just a softening, a deepening, like whew, almost a sigh. Whereas, well, do you like when this person does this thing to you? And clearly, do you like when your daughter thunks you in the head? Well, no. And then you feel constriction in the body. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So what would you think would be better so that your daughter doesn't thunk you in the head, or some example, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, I think if I was to speak with her about it and say, I don't like when you thunk me in the head,
Yeah.
how does that feel? Oh, yeah. Okay. Do you feel comfortable doing that? We get that little vibe going, oh, yeah, I think I do. You think you have some good words to share with her, or to go and raise the scenario up to how to change it? Yeah, I think I do. Or we try to figure out what the next words are or something like that. But yeah, it just, the shadow is not as creepy and as evil and woojy as everybody thinks.
Hmm.
It's a lot of times it's something that we just have chosen to not look at, because it's either been too heavy, too hard, too painful, too fill in the blank, right?
Right. I got you. All right. Thanks for that.
So yeah.
Well explained. Thank you. Uh, I, I wanted to know that because and it would make sense. I had heard about because you work with energy. I wanted to know if you ever heard about um, the idea of a shadow person. Have you ever heard anything
Hmm.
about that? These are beings that exist just in the shadows. I don't know if you've ever seen one turn quick and you see, and then they're gone. I don't know
Mhm.
if from a professional energy standpoint, is that possible? Could a being like that exist?
Sure. I mean, I think I would have to wander toward my shamanic knowledge and know that,
That's right. You got
spirits and
that too. Yeah,
entities, exactly. Spirits and entities are real things.
they
They can
are.
do, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I remember a few times where I just was in a very broad and open space, maybe doing, in light of some of the energy work that I was doing, or some of maybe the topic I was working through, or the issue I was working through with a person. And, I can tell you, I can remember a couple of times where I was just so overwhelmed by this presence within my own system. I knew it wasn't me. And it sounds funny to say these things, but there are some times where malevolent spirits know that we can be an open conduit, per se.
I
And
see.
they find us and they connect. And, if they have, not nice thoughts, they can cause the person who they've decided to hang out with to have not nice thoughts too.
Wow.
And, there's been times where I can remember being on the phone with one of my fellow shamanic practitioners. I wanted to end my life. I was so, yeah, I was being, it was not like I was hearing voices. It's not that. So I want to be real careful where I'm going with this.
Okay.
It was just this sense that this is not what I'm thinking. I'm not in a place where I
So
should be thinking that.
something got
Yeah,
you let another entity in you somehow.
yeah.
The energy you didn't ground yourself, or you left it
Yes,
open
I
or
had
something.
no concepts of, I mean, I was taught that kind of stuff when I was in training, of course,
Yeah.
but I had no concept of how, or the why, or the importance of. And I mean, after a few of these, you're just like, yeah, no, I don't want this nasty stuff with me.
Wow.
you know, it's heavy, it's dark, it's unfriendly, and I mean, I don't want to go, I would call my friends and go, I think I have an entity, and sure enough, I may have at that point, or, she would go and, check and assess and go, no, no, I don't see anything, but now maybe, in that style of practice, well, let's check your chakras, you know what I mean? And then we would address it from that way.
Yeah.
But,
If it
and
can
then there
happen
are
to you, then it must be a lot more common than we think about. If it can affect you.
it really, really is. And, I think that's the thing. I am, I've mentioned to you that I'm switching it up with the business and,
Yeah, you got change
you
coming.
know, yep, learning a lot of new stuff and everything like that. And it's overwhelming. It really is. I mean, there's a reason why I do body work. I don't do technology. I mean, I use it, but I mean, I don't have a great knowledge of it. And certainly, you know business and all of that stuff, and how to speak to, I mean, I know how to speak to people, but I don't know how to speak to people to go and like promote, right? This is all new. It's all very new. And I'm walking around the house feeling like, I know that my muscle memory is moving me through the house physically. I'm getting everything done.
Hmm.
But my brain is so saturated with new information, and there's so much change going on that it's hard for me even to kind of grasp it. And there's been times where, maybe even months ago, I may have called somebody and said, I don't feel like me. I feel lost. I feel like I'm not in my body. I'm grounded, but I can't think straight. And I kind of have come to realize that this is a pattern, at least within me. And I'm beginning to notice this when I share this with other people. They're going, I've noticed that too. That I think there's this, kind of liken it to sorry, I liken it to the Karate Kid, where Pat Morita, he goes and he has Miyagi goes and has, Ralph Macchio, Daniel go and, wax on, wax off, sand the floor, paint the fence, and
Hmm.
it feels so much like this. This is exactly the scenario that I find myself in, is I'm, wax on, wax off, and I'm
Uh-huh.
like, don't know why I'm doing this, and can I just get to the point to where I'm going to be able to use it? It would feel like it's connecting more. It's making more sense to me, and it's a stage, it's coming. But, I think that for me, knowing it's a valuable skill for us to know our patterns so that when they repeat again, we don't get all fettered. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Where I am kind of mentally and just, trying to process, new information and trying to do life, it's, it could be very unnerving in another scenario, in another example.
So you got
And
to be careful.
nowadays it's kind of like, yeah, nowadays I'm more familiar and I know what I'm looking at, and know how to, ground myself, keep myself supported, and, I don't want to say protected, but yes, protected. And then I think, I just want to speak to very tiny about, if there's somebody that, turns around and sees those shadow people, I'm leaning toward offering the concept that maybe that person can see things differently. I maybe hear things differently. I feel things differently. We call those like clairsentient, clairaudient, claircognizant, like they're called the clairs, CLAIR. So I mean, clairvoyant, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's those type of things. There's these senses that we're able to see that without outside of our natural senses, the normal five we know. But these are things that we're aware of, and they're a spiritual sense that we can engage and connect with and groom. So, if there is somebody that turns around and sees that, I would lean toward, offering the explanation that that person has that awareness and that sensitivity, not only energetically, but can actually visualize it, with
Makes
their
sense.
spiritual eyes, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense.
So
Hey, Laura Fluke, a really interesting show today. That was a good one. But I want to wish you a very happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
you
And
too.
thank you. And I want to give you the last word here. Anything you want the audience to think about or to remember, maybe in the holiday season, and then let us know how to get a hold of you, please.
Yes, I think, kind of circling back around to that whole mindfulness. I don't want to use the word narcissist, but we're all moving into a season where we're going to be around family. I mean, unfortunately, it's a truth, right? That getting together with families is not always the easiest thing for all of us, right? So, I might invite listeners to kind of look at what you're doing, look at your family's lives. Take a minute and find out, hey, what's going on with you, so that you find out that Uncle Ralph is not being such a stinker. He's just busy. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
whatever the case is, it's just, I think I'm always that type of person, is just be kind to somebody, because you really never know who's doing what,
Yeah.
and where they're at. So
Good point.
yeah, that's what I would say. And but if you are, some of the conversations that we've been having are interesting to you, or you want to know how to get this help for things that are just not, you feel stuck in life, or you feel stressed about something, or can't think straight, you can always connect with me through, my phone number is 586-322-9727. And then my website for the moment is the Quiet Room 808.com. And just a reminder that at some point we will be changing that, but even still, once we do that, that'll all filter back to the new place anyway. But yeah,
Right.
pretty exciting.
All right.
So
Laura, have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you so much. And can't wait to see you again. All right. Take care. And we will be right
all
back.
right, sounds good. Thanks, here. Take care.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.